Hello and welcome to the October edition of Zed Talks, Leaguecast Fixes Champions. This week we've got myself, Colton Blue Basket Sweat, joined by Nick the King Cooper. How you doing?
Hey, I'm pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing well. And for the roster of champions this month, we've got good old W and X. We're getting towards the end. We've got Warwick, Wukong, Xayah, Xerath, and Xin Zhao. Not a ton of characters this week, but let's go ahead and jump into it with the man, the myth, the legend,
the dog,
the definitely not Volibear, Warwick.
So I feel like this is a very well designed character whose theme kind of excellently fits his gameplay. How do you feel about? I think the rework, the Warwick rework, that's kind of hard to say, by the way. Is like I think they've hit on every single rework, but I think this is like definitely one of the upper echelon ones.
Yeah, I think that they did really, really well on his rework. If I were to change anything, I think the I could see maybe some changes in terms of like maybe pulling some of the damage reduction off of his E and giving him some kind of bonus on takedown, whether that be that like that shield re-ups, or maybe we take the fear off of it and that when he gets a takedown there's just a fear around him.
That sounds wild.
Yeah, I just like thematically, right? Like the idea is like he's terrifying, hunting you down, catches you, and then he like after you're dead he's at his least effective point, which seems really weird. And I don't think that really like there's a lot of ways to give him anything else other than, you know, it could, I think that they could go a way where, you know, on takedown you get a shield and like, or, you know, on takedown the shield and fear thing that's his current E happens, and then they could give him something else potentially, or they could make it to be like it's just the shield on his E, or maybe that's part of like his blood hunt, and give like I think his Q and his ultimate work really, really well.
Yeah, I think
the idea of him running down low health enemies is super cool. I think he's generally in a really good spot.
I think so too. I think the only thing thematically that I would even consider changing is I think it would be really cool if he could select the target he wanted to chase. I understand that's not... It doesn't play into the like I hunt low health people sort of gameplay. But I think it could be really interesting if like just as a really quick little swap, maybe the W and E, or the W and passive are sort of swapped, where passively you can mark someone and chase them down, and maybe this like cooldown is decreased if there is a low health target, or, you know, maybe champions below a certain health threshold within a certain range trigger it automatically, and then, you know, maybe his W is just a passive like attack speed bonus sort of thing. Very similar to old Warwick in that regard.
Yeah. The other thing I could potentially see is I think honestly you could move his ultimate back to a targeted ability, but still leave it via a line where like somebody could block it.
Okay, so it's a Caitlyn ult, but Warwick is the projectile.
Yeah, like I think that would be fine. And I think even if you wanted to make that conditional on, like, they need to be under a certain health threshold.
Yeah, below 50% health. Yeah,
like, if you're under half health, like, he's got
there
you in
is
his
no
blood
escape.
scent. Yeah, like, he's going to hit you with the ultimate.
Maybe even below 50% health and Warwick has damaged you. Like, in that regard, there is no... Warwick is, like, he has your scent. There is no escaping him.
Yeah, and I think, like... What I'd probably rather want to see on that is that's more of a like in combat thing. 'Cause again, like, you know, the ultimate is you're running it down, like you're running somebody down, and you're probably not the one who got them low, because if you were, you'd still be on them. But I think, in a fight, it's like, okay, yeah, Warwick has hit you multiple times recently and you're low health. It's like, he's going to keep running you down. It's going to be really hard to get away with him. You can't just flash and be fine. Mm-hmm. Which, I mean, he does kind of get that already with bonus move speed towards lower health targets, but I do think it's a little decreased in combat.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
But no, yeah, I think it'd be cool if, again, he was at least the, easy mode, learn how to jungler, so I think if you gave that, targeted ability, but it's still a line shot that could be blocked by another character, right? All they need to be is, blood scented below 2/3 or something, right? So you still need to be able to hit the skill shot if you want to start a fight with it. But if you're, running somebody down, then go ahead, just take it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Do we want to move into Wukong, the monkey man?
Yeah, let's do it.
The OP top laner guy?
Yeah, so I think the only thing about current Wukong that I don't like is his passive. I think it provides a lot of just raw stats that are stats that aren't very fun. Health regen and armor aren't very fun stats, turns out.
Yeah, let me stop you from dealing damage and make the damage that you do happen to get count.
Yeah, exactly. That's not fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you. I think that the idea is that he needs additional tankiness to be able to actually go in and do Wukong things. But I think that you could move a little bit of that tankiness onto his W, maybe, and then give him a different passive. Right, you could be while you have your clone out, or even maybe you get the bonus resistances while it's off cooldown, and then if you blow your clone, then you become squishy because you just went invisible,
Yeah, I like that a lot, actually.
Right, where it's okay, I'm taking off my bonus armor and turning it into the clone, and now I'm a little more vulnerable, but I also get to, show up and blast your whole team.
Yeah, I like that.
As for what his new passive would be, I think that's... I'm trying to think, what would really work for him. And I feel like he could benefit, honestly, pretty well from a, when out of combat passive, kind of Garen. I wouldn't want it to just be the health regen for the reasons we talk about, but it's maybe if he, hits you from out of vision, maybe that ability has bonus armor shred, or, maybe they move the armor shred onto that. So it's if he hits you with an ability out of vision or out of stealth, then that next one shreds armor.
Oh, I like that.
And so you could, either do that out of a bush or out of your W, and then your Q can just be a big bonk, right? It just does a lot of damage. Maybe it gives you a little bit of health back to give him some of his sustain. It's last hit him in and get a little bit of health back. Obviously it's going to be his core trading tool. I don't know if his E or ult really need any massive changes. I mean, I never liked the fact that his E gave a ton of attack speed, but I don't think it really does anymore.
I think it does give a little bit of attack speed, but
it's not 90%.
Yeah, no, I think that's kind of fine for his character, especially where the Q cooldown is. I believe it's still lowered by auto attacking.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with that. I think honestly the only problematic thing I think with his kit is his passive to me.
Yeah, I think his ultimate having 2 charges is really good for him. I think he doesn't.
I like that a lot.
I don't think he really needs it, but obviously they did it for I think the biggest issue with it is that obviously the knockup is the bigger effect, and that if the damage is super high, it feels like shit. But if the damage isn't super high, you pop it for the knock-up and then go back to autoing, which is what they wanted to avoid by giving him a second knock-up with it. I could see maybe them extending the window to say, like, your first cast has to be further from the second cast, but you also get, like, 5 or 10 more seconds on the back end.
Okay.
Because, him doing 2 back-to-back, I feel like kind of sucks to play against, but it's like, you have to spin for at least, like, a second and a half or 2 seconds. Like, I don't know how long the actual effect is.
I mean, you could even just make it that it can't be canceled.
Mm-hmm.
Or it can only be canceled after a certain, amount of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, but so otherwise, I think Warwick's kind of fine. I mean, I'm sorry, Wukong. Yeah, Wukong's kind of
fine. So that leads us to the next one. The first X champion, Xayah.
Xayah. This is a character whose design I really, really like. She's one of the 80 carries that I played a lot of last season when I was trying to climb from Plat. Man, I think I would just like to see... So I think her passive with the feathers is really cool. Her ultimate and her E are like very well designed abilities for the character she's supposed to be. And I think that just leaves her W and her Q, honestly, that I would like to see changed, I guess.
Yeah, to me, I really like the passive, but I feel like just make every single auto drop a feather. Like, don't have any contingent on having cast a spell prior. Because I think if you just make every one of her autos is just that type of auto attack, I think it's a little more clear. And then I think you get to open up more other interesting things to do with her, I suppose.
I guess. I only worry then that feathers wouldn't be a main damage source if you're getting on every single auto attack.
I mean, you are, though, like, in any team fight, like...
No, but I think if you're gonna have auto, like, feathers on every single auto, that the feathers themselves and the pullback has to do significantly less damage, because you're guaranteeing more feathers on the field in almost every single scenario.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I feel like she already gets a feather on pretty much every auto if you're using her spells right. But
almost, but not quite,
Mm-hmm. And I guess to me, I would just rather, like, maybe lower the damage just a little bit to let that be everyone, and then open up interesting worlds where, like, you can do more really cool feather plays. But I can see it either way. I don't think it's super necessary. What would you want to do with her Q, which currently is just a throw 2 feathers in a straight line?
In a straight line, I kind of don't like. I don't know. So I'm thinking, like, maybe she just, like, I don't know, throws out a handful of feathers in front of her, like in a sort of a cone area, and maybe it just deals, like, damage to everything in front of her.
Okay.
I don't know. That's not... I didn't get that far when I was thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, I could honestly see, like... I could see a world where it almost, like, mimicked Rakan's Q, where, like, she just throws, like, 1, and it comes back to her.
Ooh, maybe she throws it, and that's where she gets the attack speed from. And then the W could just be something functionally different.
Yeah, I'm thinking the Q could very much be, like, I think what would be interesting is that you throw it, and then you choose to pull it back, and if you do, you get, a bonus attack speed, or maybe, like, movement speed, you get a little steroid if you pull it back, but then that feather isn't, eligible for your E pullback. Okay, yeah. So you have to make that decision, right? Mm-hmm. And then, it could be an improved effectiveness if you hit, a champion. Where, like, if you got it through a champion and you do your regular pullback, you get a little bit more of a steroid. The W for me, right, because right now it's just, like, get a bunch of attack speed. Which is, I mean, it's an 80 carry ability.
Get a bunch of attack speed, and then also, like mimic your auto attacks basically. Like I think it's 30% damage on extra auto attack damage.
Yeah.
Which is cool. And it actually does like a surprising amount of damage. It's just kind of boring.
Yeah. It's weird cuz like a lot of what I want her to be able to do. Okay, I've got an idea that I want to. So her W, I think could be really interesting. Let me get to my reworked ultimate first.
Sure.
So for her ult, I want to change it to she pulls back any feathers she has on the ground, and they protect her with like a flat shield plus number of feathers. And then after that shield breaks, or after a certain number of time, they like shoot back out, a range around her, kind of like a Talon ult. Because I don't like the whole go untargetable for like a second and a half, even though I do think it's super like cool when done right. But I think that if she like pulled all of her feathers to herself to protect her, and then they shot back out, again, you have those like weird situations where, okay, if I pull my feathers in now, I'm not going to have as many to use for my ultimate. But like if I get a really good ultimate and they shoot back out, and then I can I can stun anyone who's on top of me.
That's fair.
And then like it's weird because I don't think that needs to be done. I think she works very well as is.
And I like her. I like her current ulti. I like the untargetability, but I understand that could be a little frustrating.
Yeah, I just think it would be really cool, like, instead of her jumping up in the air and untargetable for a little bit, like, being a scrappier AD carry where it's just like, okay, like, I'm still targetable, I'm in here, I just have a fat shield.
Yeah,
and
that makes
if
sense.
you stay on me, you better kill me, because if you don't, I'm gonna stun you and murder you. And then, maybe you could have something on the W that's like, because I think her thriving in like low health situations is cool and makes sense, but I also think she's like meant to be a almost like sneaky character. She's got like a whole bunch of weird vibes about her.
I mean, maybe it's one of those things where like she gains attack speed the lower her health is, like up to a certain cap.
And then maybe just the activation is like for a small amount of time you get like movement speed and lifesteal or something.
Yeah, something like that. I think that makes sense thematically with like, as she gets lower health, she becomes more like feral, for instance. Like, she loses control of the animalistic side of her.
Yeah, I could see. Yeah,
goes into more of a frenzy.
So yeah, I don't know. Zaya's a tough one because she's really well designed. I think
she is. Yeah, I don't necessarily think. I think her abilities are kind of boring, but I think they work really well with her character, like in the role she plays.
I think the only other thing we could talk about a little bit is trying to put something else interesting into her kit that's like, this works with Rakan. And it's tough because you want them to be good enough on their own and not oppressive when they're together.
Yeah, because I absolutely want to just say, if Rakan's in the game, any feathers she creates are also created by Rakan. Like, Rakan also spits out feathers. But that's fucking busted.
So yeah, I was thinking along those lines. When Rakan hard sees someone, they drop a feather.
Oh, I think that works like super well, actually. I don't even think that's OP.
I think that it's not as busted, but like it has a potential for a crazy combo.
No, absolutely, but I also don't think one feather typically is very impactful,
Yeah, I think the biggest issue with it would be like if you get the recombo, right, where it's quickening plus W, that's instantly 2 feathers on the ground. So then 1 auto into E extends it. Now that being said, like,
but
I
that's
don't
your
think
whole
that's,
nuke. Then
I don't think that's super problematic and could be pretty interesting.
No, I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, and I also think the idea of there being more feathers and her interacting more with them, kind of with my pitch on the ultimate, and then like her usage of Q, either, you know, pull it back for the heal or use it as part of her, you know, stun. I think probably I would move it to like it has to be 4 feathers to get the stun, but again, that's with my every auto just drops a feather regardless.
That's the other way to do it. Yeah, just increase the limit if you if you're gonna make it easier to get the feathers out.
Yeah, and then I think you could honestly make the W also be like a very miniature ultimate version where it just like she throws out an arc of maybe like 3 feathers in a narrow cone and dashes herself back a short distance, right, where it's just like a small self peel tool.
Yeah.
And then her ultimate is where she pulls in all of those feathers and then eventually throws them all back out. So that's my Xayah pitch. Nice. It's all about the feathers, baby.
I like that.
All right, Xayah. We've got Xerath here next, the lightning guy, the unchained, ascended, magus, whatever.
All right, so I think his passive is boring as fuck.
Oh yeah.
And I think his ultimate is pretty cool, but could be way, way cooler. So I'm going to go ahead and throw out the idea, hey, it's you and me, we're making another Ascended character. I think with certain levels or benchmarks or whatever you want to define it as, like, I think Xerath should be able to, I think he should be able to cast more than just the little bombs, just the little arcane orbs while he's ulting. I think while he's in the Ascended state, he should just be able to cast everything. Like, he should be able to cast his Q with increased range. He should be able to cast his W with increased range. His E, his ultimate. Maybe you have a limited number of spell casts to make up for it. But, like, I really want Xerath ult to feel like... when you... This is something that I think a lot of other, Ascendeds do really well. Like, I think Nasus and with Renekton, when you ult, you feel powerful. Like, you get big, you get a bunch of stats, you're visibly stronger, and and that affects your abilities in some ways. And I just don't see that with Xerath. It's another ability. It's good. Don't get me wrong. I don't think it's a bad ultimate. It's just kind of boring.
Yeah, so I think that with that, I would definitely be down for it to be like you can cast all of your abilities at extended range with potentially bonus stuff. I think if we were to do that, I think what I'd probably want to see it be is that you are you're locked into it. You can't cancel it. So it's for the next 10 seconds.
I'm fine with that.
You're ascended, you're rooted, you have this nutty abilities and all that, but you can't get out of it outside of maybe Hourglass. And
I think one of those maybe one of the limitations we could put on it is spellcasts reduce the timer. So you could, maybe we could go crazy with it, and maybe spells while he's ascended have no cooldown, or have drastically reduced cooldown, but they consume the timer. So if you are in a position where okay, I'm gonna ult, and then I'm just gonna launch everything as quickly as I can. But then whoops, now I don't have any power left to do anything afterwards.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just want to see his ultimate turn into something that's more than just blue.
Yeah, so I'm imagining it being and I think thematically it could be a really, really sick animation if he busted out of his chains for a second and just became a pure, energy being, and they're just on the floor, and so he can't move.
Yeah.
Because he's still bound, but he's mostly broken out. And I think that you could definitely have it do a small AoE around him, so it's hey, you are stuck in place, but if somebody, like, if a melee character walks onto you, like, they're gonna be eating a little bit of lightning damage. As just, like, you literally have so much energy, it just can't be contained in your form.
Yeah.
It's gonna start striking out. I think one thing that could be really interesting with his ultimate is if, like, each shot did less, but it was, like, instead of just, like, one lob, it's, like, 3 that get, like, increasingly bigger on each shot. So it's like, you shoot 3 bolts with your first cast, and it's, like, small, medium, large, with the largest being about the size of his current W. So it's like, if you hit the dead on, obviously it's going to do way more damage, and the first one maybe has, like, a slow or something attached to it. But I think that would be really cool, right? Because instead of, like, throwing just, like, one little bolt, right? It's like, if you cast them back to back to back, right, like, you're getting hit by, like, a dozen Xerath R's.
Yeah, it's a massive barrage.
Yeah. And then from there, I mean, like, I think if that, right, and you can cast your other abilities while you're in that unbound ascended form or whatever, could be super cool. His passive at the moment is just, like, get mana back sometimes, which
it's so boring.
Which is super boring. I think there's a world where you could have him get, like, stacks for hitting abilities and takedowns and stuff, and that could just scale into, like, stats for him, whether that be, like, your ultimate goes from, like, 3 bolts to, 4 up to 5, like, the number of casts you get on your ult could start increasing based on that. You could give him some, like, spell pen, you could give him just mana. Like, I think there's a lot that you could give him that gives him more of that, like, I'm a late game hyper carry that eventually I'm going to, air quotes, ascend.
Yeah, I mean, it could even be something like he just gains bonus damage until he takes damage from an enemy champion.
Yeah.
Like, hit him or he will kill you.
Yeah, that's another way you could go about it for sure. As for his actual abilities themselves, I mean, his Q in his ultimate form, I think would have to be just max range on immediate cast.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Stopping to charge it would kind of suck. And I don't honestly know if... I think his Q range wouldn't have to change when he's in his ultimate form because it is so big if you can cast it instantly. Yeah. And then, like, his W and E could just have an extended range. Like, his W could be...
Maybe his W just... everything's a sweet spot while he's ultimate.
Either that or, like, it just gets wider. So, like, the current thing is the sweet spot, and then there's, like, another ring around it that's slow.
Fair enough, yeah.
Right, and then his E could just be, a longer stun.
I think maybe it splits off into 3.
That's one way. I think another one would just be, like, to have, like, that stun is fully effective regardless of the range, because his stun gets better the farther it is. But, like, if you're using it to protect yourself, that could be really interesting and, like, would fit with that, I'm locking myself down for 5 or whatever seconds. Like, I have a tool to protect myself a little bit. And, yeah, I mean, there could also be along the lines, I think, where, like, you have to be in the ascended form for a period of time, and then takedowns extend maybe how long you can stay in it.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
But at a certain point, you can just choose to cancel it. But I do think that'd be, like, really cool. Obviously, it would be tough to balance those numbers. And
absolutely. Like, that's not our job, though.
Yeah, if he has to stand still to do that much damage, holy shit, that's a lot of damage.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think
that's not our responsibility. We just make cool ideas,
Yeah, we just make Xerath ult be like in the old Dark Stars comp when you had him with a fucking Ginsu's.
I just want him to, like, he is, when he ascends, a literal being of like pure destructive energy. And that's it. Like, that's who he is. Yeah. For this short period of time, he will kill anything that is within range.
I think there's also, you could, if you wanted to, make his passive something that, like, his auto attacks are almost a spell, whether that be like they just like erupt in lightning around whatever he's hitting or something. Like I don't want an on-hit attack speed Xerath to be an actual thing in real League like it was in TFT, but I think that there's so many like mega mage characters that you could try and do like a different auto attack for, and like the closest we have is Karthus, that his Q might as well be his auto attack.
Yeah.
But like I don't like, why not just have a character that like doesn't have an auto attack and their Q is just like that's their cooldown. I think that that's doable, and I think it would be so cool.
I think so too, yeah. And maybe Xerath would be the character for it.
Yeah, I don't know if he would, because like he doesn't have anything that's that rapid, but yeah. So that's some thoughts for Xerath, and we got our boy Xin Zhao, the relatively recently reworked guy who dashes forward and then wind becomes lightning.
I actually think that the new Xin Zhao is very well designed. Like, I think his archetype of like the odds don't even stand against me. Like, I'm relentlessly going to charge forward no matter what. Like, is so exemplified within this current like kit's design. That like I think he can be balanced via numbers, but I think his kit is like really cohesive and meshes well with both the character's theme and the gameplay itself.
Yeah, I think it fits pretty well. I would say one thing that I would maybe like to see is some changes to the way his ultimate works. I think it'd be really interesting if they lowered the base damage reduction of it, but had it increased based on number of enemies knocked out of it. Right? Because one thing that I hate is the Xin Zhao popping ultimate like defensively because he got caught.
Yeah, and I mean that's something that we have talked about with a lot of characters. It's lame when Warwick uses his ultimate to run away.
Yeah, right. And so like I would want it to be not nearly as effective, and they could make it, that it only protects like one side of him, but that doesn't really work if he's diving in and then knocking everyone away.
Yeah.
So that's where I think I'd rather have it be that, when he ultimates, the amount of damage reduction and potentially like the duration is increased based on the number of enemies he knocked away, so that like if he is just in a 1v1 or 2v2, like it's not really doing as much, no damage from the outside can harm you. But if he does go into, a 5-man, knocks everyone away and starts like beating down on your AD carry, like great. That's what he's supposed to do. Reward him for hitting that.
Yeah, it could even just be like, as long as he remains in combat, the duration is extended,
Yeah, I would want it to scale off number of people hit or something like that. Man, when like you're like, oh man, I know this Thresh hook is about to hit.
Yeah.
Let me pop R so that the Syndra ult does 0 damage. Fuck that.
Yeah, that is lame. I agree.
But I mean, otherwise, he's got his little dash in, his wind become lightning. Is his Q still the knockup? I don't even know.
Yes, it is.
3 auto knockup. Okay. Yeah, the only other thing I could think would be some kind of like way to push him more into a one-on-one duelist thing. But it's weird because like he wants to fight one person, but he also wants to dive in, kick everyone away from that person, and then fight that one person.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be like I'm going to like whittle you down one at a time, regardless of how many people there are,
Yeah. So I could see a world where maybe he gets like his E cooldown back or partially back on takedown to be like, okay, time to challenge the next enemy, sorta. Because I've already fucked up the one. But to me I think the biggest thing would be that ultimate. I think would be really, really cool to make it not as strong of a 1v1 duel, or, you know, in a 2v2 not nearly as strong. But really make that a, like, we're gonna reward you for diving into 5 people.
Yeah.
That's really all I have for him.
Yeah. I don't know. He doesn't give us a lot to work with.
Yeah, I think outside of, like, just completely fucking reworking everything about him. So I guess that's gonna be it for this episode of Zed Talks League Cast Fixes Champions. If you want to tell us how we ruined your champion or fixed them, you're welcome to do that in our Discord or wherever you happen to be listening to this. We read all the comments and stuff. But thank you all for listening, for being patrons if you're out there getting it early, and we will see you guys next month for the Y characters, including everyone's favorite cat, Yumi.
Woo!
Yeah, so thanks for joining me, Nick, and bye!
Bye!